Yeah, I'm different. Nah, I don't fit their system.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the simulator game of how to create a simulator. Now, today we're not going to be actually on the simulator, nor am I going to be typing the code as I go along, because this is a very long awaited video that everybody has been asking for. So I am just going to let this play and you can see what is happening. So I have just done exactly what we did in the other videos, and I have just added some cash, right? So I've added some cash into the leader stats. There's no levels at the minute, but I've added some cash. So now if I stop, you'll see I was clicked was already added, and then data was saved successfully. Now if I press play again, I have 52 cash. So I hope that the subscribers who have been waiting for this are happy, and if you are, give me a like or even a comment because that would do this channel wonders. But let's get into it because, like I said, we're not going to be actually typing the code as we go along, but we will be talking about every little bit of it, and this code will be dropped on my Patreon. Now, you don't actually have to have Patreon subscription. You just have to have a account, and I will link it in the subscription in the description now. So if you actually have a look at the description, I should have a comment that will link you to the exact page for all of this. And I have actually gone through and labeled the most of it. I might go over it after this video and have a little bit more labeling on, so it's very easy to understand and everybody can use it in their own game or move it to their own game. So let's get started. So to start with, we first need to start with the services. So we have, let's zoom in because a lot of the time we have issues with nobody being able to see. So if I make it bigger, here we go. So we have player. So we have used this quite a few times. This is getting a game service from get game and then using um, the semicolon, no, the colon, sorry, and then get service players. So this gets the services. If you don't know, you can check out some of my other videos or even some of the recommended videos that I've got on my channel. I have data service. So this is a new one that we've never seen before. Well, you've never seen before. So data service is similar to the player service in terms of how we call it and create the version of it. And then once we've got it, we can say data store service, right? So this is what, and this is actually the reference. So if we wanted to get it, it goes get service, data store service. Now to create our own data store, which is what we need to be able to save data in Roblox, we first need to make sure that we have published our game to Roblox. So this will actually be published, it's public now, and it says check out Mr. SMC's Roblox Dev Labs. And this is online now, so you can come and play it. All you have to do is press the block, right? But that's that means that you'll press the block, you can log out, and you'll save your score. I could possibly turn this into a fun game, you know. But the major thing then is going into security and enable studio access to API services. This is a really needed thing. I'm just making sure that you can hear me because there has been the last few videos in my other channel that you could not hear me. So, yes, you can hear me. Right. So once this is enabled and you've saved it and published it to Roblox, you're all good and set to go now. So you need to make, similar to what we did in the last video on the simulator, you need to make a clicker. If you've already got one from following along, then good. But if you haven't, just go and make a clicker. So you just need to make a clicker script that adds to the leader stats. And of course, before we save anything, we need to actually have some data. But the data that this is why it's following on from the simulator series, is we already talked about how to add leader stats. I'm going to have to pause for a minute because I'm going to cough. But we talked about how to add leader stats. So we go into an instance new folder and then leader stats parent and then player. So we add it to the player and then we add some cache to the leader stats into that folder with an int value, and then we can then add it. So now that we have that instantly set, we're going to be using in the first function players removing connect. So when this gets from the service we've been using for quite a bit, players actually then has a dot. If you press dot, you can see all of them. So if we go players dot, you can actually see a few different things. So players changed, players removing, players added, and so forth. So those are actually actions. You can see, and what an action is when that actually happens. So when a player leaves, it will connect it every single time a player leaves. So that will actually cause us to create now a player ID. So this is very needed. This may end up a longer video because we're already on 5 minutes and we've got a lot here to explain. But player ID is basically using the username of the player, and then we've got a very new thing here, which is called a concatenation. Now, this actually almost makes it look like, so we'll have, for example, this is what it would look like. So I'll just put a comment here, player underscore, and then it'd be like, oh, something like that, right? So it'd be player underscore that. This is what this translates to. But then now that we can use that further encode to save people's data, you may want to encrypt it in case hackers, but we can get into that in further tutorials or down the line when we get there in the future. But now we need to create a data, something to store our data. This is saving data. So we are actually making a local variable called money data as well as level data. And we're going to actually save this, make this equal to whatever our player has in that data right now. So right now, and when they leave, what do they have? So as soon as we've done that, we can then turn it into a p call. So a p call is normally looks like this. So local success and then comma error and then equals p call function. You can also use this as your own function, remember? But this is what it usually looks like. But I have turned it into can save data and could not save data for easier use when if you actually want to take my code from the Patreon. Remember the links in the description, and you do not have to pay for this. I'm making sure that all of the code that I've got for these videos are free for all of you subscribers or non-subscribers if you just want to follow along. So now that we know what a P call is, well, we don't really know what a P call is, but this is a P call, and this has a success or an error message. Now, this just stops data getting lost or things having issues. But now what we need to do is use our new data store that we've created, money data store. So money equals data service and then the name of our new data store and then another one which is the name of our other new data store for the levels. We can then add to that data. So for example, using the money data store, we can use money data store set async. Now this, you need to make sure you put set because you're setting the data into the data store. And then we're now going to be using the new variable we created, which looks similar to this, depending on what your player is. And it'll be player ID and then comma. So set it for the name of the player to the money data, right? So which is what we've set as, or whatever your new variable is for whatever your data is in your cache. You could have this as cache data or um, food data or whatever you've got inside of your game you're creating. So now we can move on to using this p call. So if the data is saved, it will print data was saved successfully. However, if the data could not save, it would print this. We can actually add later down the line another thing where it refreshes this. So we could turn this p call function into an actual function up here to then refresh and redo the entire thing to try and do it again to see if it was there. But that is a little bit too complicated for this episode or this video, sorry. How and now we can also move down to the getting data. So we've seen saving data. All we do is use the player removing connect function, and then we set our data using the previous episodes or previous videos data to the leader stats. Now we're going to be moving on to setting the data to the player when it joins, because we've already got a data in the data store floating about somewhere in the cloud, but we need to get that data now and put it in. So again, make sure, and what I forgot to mention is you have to have player here, because this is what allows you to use the player's data, so whatever player has joined. So using this now, we're going to call these two again, but this time we're not going to set them equal to anything because this is going to be set to whatever is in our data store. So we're just going to make sure we've named them local money data and local level data, or whatever your data is. This is another familiar thing, as you remember, this looks like player underscore something like this. And then naming and creating our data. This is where it should look familiar to the last video that you watched, is we create our data. We've got more cash here as well. And then finally, we're going to add another p call, and this time has data and does not have data. So if the person has data, then we want to actually set and get the ace. Well, we're going to get it anyway, so this is going to check. If it can't get it, then it's going to say no. But if it has got data, so they've joined at least once, then it will set the data to whatever it is. So it has data, the cash.value of our player, so cash.value, which we haven't set here yet, will equal money data. So whatever number is stored inside of our money data. Then we can also use the same function to get levels. So levels.value, which is in here, can then use level data value, which is inside of our data store. Now this is the different type of syntax, but this is get async, because remember, you're getting the data from the data store cloud that's somewhere floating around you, or anywhere in wherever Roblox's servers are. So if it doesn't have any data, sometimes this can be an issue, so we may want to run this once or twice to see if it does actually have any data and then check the individuals. But again, that's a bit more advanced than this episode, and we are running short of time a bit because I'm trying to keep them to 15 minutes episodes to keep them nice and short and sweet. But then, if they don't have any data, we want to set them to the data that we want them to have when they start. So, for example, in my game, maybe they have 0 because it's a simulator game and you can make money from nothing quite easily. Or if you're in an RPG game, you could have this at 500 and it would start at 500 the first time they ever join, and then that would be going from there, like we've set level to 1. Now, before you leave, that is not everything. You need to remember that the game has a issue when one player is only playing your game and the game closes, because the game will close faster than your person playing the game will be able to save its data. So what we need to do is use another function, which is game bind to close. Now, not the function, this is another action. So when the game is closing, we call this function, and this will print waiting a moment until closed. So we look, waiting a moment until I close, and then wait 3 seconds, and then print done waiting. So that's what it will do, and that makes sure that the data will not just disappear out of thin air. So I hope that this has cleared everything up for data store, and I will be dropping, again, reminding you that I'm dropping my link to the Patreon for this exact code, all of this code with the comments in and everything, in the Patreon for absolutely free. All you need to do is have an account. You don't even have to pay for the account. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you liked the video, please give this a like so other people can see it. And if you want to see more of my content, hit the subscribe button, and that's it. Peace.
Yeah, I'm different. Nah, I don't fit their system. So let the math class act, that's a fact. Never backtrack. ADD's my life hack. Addicted to spitting rap. Angels on my back. 111, telling me to carry on. What's a meal? The evil one. Without him, we'd be none.